Hi everybody, welcome to Missy's Imaginings. It's very frustrating, this position that I'm in, so thank you for coming by and saying hi and checking in. I appreciate it. Um, my hand is getting better slowly. So this a lot of times is my day when it's getting inflamed, and so just a small report. I keep compression on it most of the time, and it's like when your hand, normally moves like this, and this hand will only go to here, and then it starts to really, there's a lot of pain right here, and so it's in this tendon cluster right there, and I've been doing some stretches that I've been given, so I've been trying to do that where you do the glide, you make a fist, come up, this, and up. So I can do it with this hand, do the fist, come up here, come up, but when you start to straighten those fingers, that's when it starts to really hurt. And then there's these ones are easier. You just hold your hand like normal, and then as I press down, I give resistance against my other fingers, and so I do those. Then there's a rolling, and but in trying to do those, it hurts. So I alternate between the heating pad wrapped on here, and I've already done that for a while so that I could get the exercises in, warm it up to do exercises, and now I put the ice pack on and kind of wrap it with one of my little rag bag towels here. It's got blue from Maddie's hair. So then I keep ice on it for a while. So unfortunately, to try to sew and do a project, it really irritates it, because you're, especially using the scissors to cut things out where you're gripping and doing this. And my scissors in particular, they give assist, but there's actually a tension spring in the scissors, and so you're actually not just cutting the fabric, but you're pressing down on against a spring, and so I haven't been able to sew very much. That's why we've done a couple patterns, because I can use a pencil for a while and a marker and kind of draw, because it takes less than doing this, working scissors, to just hold a pencil for a little while. But even after I do a couple of those, then I have to take some time off. So I thought what we could do is look at, I heard a bell. I don't know what that was. Hopefully it's not my camera. So I thought we'd take a look at this little fella. He came, and like in the same manner of working a pencil, I was able to hold a paintbrush for a little while and get his face up done. This is the Miro doll Leo, who formerly had the Flora head, and although I like the way I styled it and everything, and I was happy with the face up, I just came to not really love the sculpt itself. But I always liked this little guy's sculpt. So I'll put a little picture to the side, maybe it'll block my head, I don't know. But anyway, thanks to all of you who came along and liked the posts on Facebook and Instagram, and he was fun to do, and I just liked his little face. It's kind of more my aesthetic, maybe. It just is a little whimsical. He still will eventually have more of a brown colored wig, but this one I had available, and he stole some clothes from someone else. Because I haven't been sewing, I don't have very many quarter scale clothing items, and so it's like whoever's going to be photographed grabs the camos, because I don't have any other clothes. So, but for now, at least he's dressed and presentable. But he was a lot of fun to do, and I did make a mistake when I ordered him. The body, I had forgotten, was in the normal yellow resin, and I just ordered normal pink, just because that's what a lot of times I normally get, and so it's the wrong color resin. But with the little peaches and oranges in his face up, he looks okay. And then I found the contrasting eyes, so one is with a pupil and one is without, but he turned out pretty good. So yeah, so he's good company, and has kind of provided some inspiration to make some clothing patterns more for the quarter scale. There are several quarter scale patterns available on the website if you're looking for a tonner matte body style that will fit this guy, or quarter scale male, like 44 centimeters or so. But what I have found is that the BJDs I have, and I don't have a ton, I have him and I have Resin Soul Song, their legs are longer than the tonner. And so you can use the tonner matte patterns if you want to make some quarter scale clothing, but you'll have to lengthen the legs, and if you're doing a long sleeve shirt, probably the arms as well. So I recently just posted his basic set, and for any of you that are new, and for some reason maybe this video just popped up in your feed, so thanks for clicking on it and watching, but all the patterns on my website that are posted on the ready to print pages are free. All you have to do is click on the one you want and it'll open in a PDF and you can download it and print. So, and sometimes I don't know if you even have to download it first. I think if it pops up as a PDF link, you can just hit print and print it out. They are designed for 8.5 by 11 letter size paper in the US. How that translates to A4, I'm not sure. I think A4 is bigger, and seriously, I need to just Google the dimensions, so I'll have that for you, and it always goes to the back of my brain. But I believe the A4 paper is bigger, so I think in transitioning over, if you just hit print actual size in your printer options, I think that will work. You can let people know in the comments if that's the easiest way to get the patterns to print. I'm not sure. Some of my patterns are on US legal size paper, which is 8.5 by 14, so it's longer. Those might take a little bit more finagling in order to print them out, so I'm not sure how those would transition to the other measurements. So anyway, so those patterns, if you're new, they're all free. So if you're working with the quarter scale, we're going to be adding some more for this guy. I need to come up with some more quarter scale things, but I'm not sure how soon it will be before I can start sewing. And like I said, I've done a couple little things for like a couple hours, but then I have to take a break, and so that's the frustrating part, is I can't do what I want to do. But we did go to the doll show. I had Savannah's help, so it was so fun to see some of you there. It was kind of a slow day this time in March. I'm not sure why. Some shows are really busy, others aren't. The one in the fall was very busy. This one that we just did was a little bit slower, but it was still a really nice day. And I don't know why my voice is all froggy. I guess I haven't talked just to the camera for a while, so I'm all froggy, I guess. And you'll notice Salem is up here. He decided to come and be in frame a little bit. He's doing much better, so thank you to all of you that sent good wishes and good karma and prayers for Salem. He is doing so much better. He's gained a bunch of weight back, and we took him to the vet because we had to do another blood draw just to check the thyroid levels. He was skin and bones, and now he's gained a bunch of weight back, and the doctor came out, and he had Salem in one hand in his carrier, and he had the paperwork and everything in the other hand, and he came out, and he didn't want to scare him, and so he just went because he was so excited with the results and that he was doing so much better. And he said, I couldn't believe it. He said, I didn't want to give you guys false hope, and I just wasn't sure how this was going to work, but he is so much better. So yeah, so he's doing pretty good. He likes to snuggle and keep me company during the day. And so yeah, he's a good boy. And so I thought, since I can't be sewing right now, but I can kind of operate the pen and pencil thing, I thought, what if we go ahead and take a look at how to use the basic set for this guy to actually draft a pattern. So many of you who make your own patterns, this is going to be like old news to you, and that's fine. And But some of you who are just new to sewing or new to doll sewing, and maybe you've just recently discovered the channel or the website, and you're thinking, what are these basic sets for? If you can't sew them together, what are they for? I thought, why don't we go ahead and take that basic set for this little guy and make an outfit. So now the question comes on what outfit we want to make. I have been looking through some designs that I really like, and I'm going to go ahead and take the ice off here for a minute and grab my iPad. And I don't know if these will show up, but we'll give it a shot. In making a pair of pants, usually a pair of pants, let's see, I don't remember what I did here. In making a pair of pants, a lot of times, once you've made, 3 or 4 pair of pants, they're pants. they're going to be cut out the same. They're going to be sewn the same. There might be slight variations. So I like to have fun with doing different things and finding things that have a very unique style or unique cut, because like I say, a pair of dress pants is a pair of dress pants. Oh, it has 1 pleat. Oh, it has 2 pleats. Woohoo. So, oh, there's inset pockets. Well, that's on every pair of pants. So I did have fun with a couple new things on the SD Mori set for the fellas. I put the patch pockets on the front of the pants. So that was something different than the normal inset pockets. On the cargo pants, we put a lot of patches on the side of the leg, as well as the inset with the hammer loops. So that was something new to try with the elasticized ankles. So that was just a new look, something fun. And then the wrap coat and paper bag waisted pants put the open pleats at the top of the waistline, and then it comes down to the sewn pleat, and then the pleat opens. And because they're sewn that way, there's no fly. They just pull up, and then the ties around the waist cinch it shut. So that was something different. So I thought it would be fun to take a look at some other new ideas. And so I will Google is different outfits to just get inspiration. And I'll put a picture here, the black wrap coat was kind of inspired, the color blocking, from one of my favorite fellas wearing the Louis Vuitton outfit, in that the layers go across, and so it's color blocked in a way. So I had fun taking this as an inspiration to do the black outfit. So you just never know what ideas you're going to get by looking at fun fashions online. Of course, a lot of you have seen the Mori outfits as well. Another thing I found was a painted fabric hoodie with a unique shape. So that's kind of a fun thing, because instead of just the regular jacket, it has an hourglass shape to it and a really large, almost shoulder wide hood rather than just the neckline hoodie. So that's another idea. I thought these pants were very cute. They have a wrapped look with an angled hemline that's pieced in, gathered waist, and patch pockets. So I thought that would be really fun to try. Let's see, we've done a variation of the harem pants, but these are a more drastic look, so that's something fun. So I just like to look through different fashions and then try to replicate something similar. Here's another pair of pleated long flared pants that have an inset on the side, which would be a really fun thing to try. Let's see. Oh, and these were interesting, with a really wide waist that literally folds over. So the fold of the fabric makes the pleat at the waist and then snaps or buttons at the top. So that would be really fun to do. And you could have a faux fly, a fly, or not a fly at all, because this fold allows you to get it up onto the doll and then just fold it over for the closure. And oh, sorry, there we go. So I thought that would be a really fun look to do. They're a very wide pant. Again, we have a harem style pant that is draped like a wrap across the front. That would be fun. So I've been looking at some fun things to try. The last one we'll show is a pant that is literally snapped up the side to create the closure in the seam line. So I thought that would be fun. So I thought, well, since I'm not sewing quite yet, I can go ahead and get some patterns ready for when I do start sewing. And so this fella will have some fun things to wear. And I'm in a quandary because I need to dress him, but I also need to dress my 39 centimeter fellas. So if we get a couple ideas, I might take these and then shrink him down a little bit, because he's a good 5 centimeters taller than the other ones. So he's quite a bit bigger, and a lot of the oversized clothing still fits, but on the 39 centimeters, they really are too big. So anyway, I thought, let's pick a design and go ahead and do up a pattern. And it'll be a little while. I mean, you won't see it because we'll cut right to it. But I'm going to get the ice back on my wrist for a while because I've already kind of overworked it. And we'll ice it, and then we'll come back to the camera and pick a design and go ahead and make it into a pattern using the basic set. Okay, so I decided on the pants that I want to go ahead and make. So I'll put the picture here. I'm going to go ahead and give a try to this pair of pants, and as you can see, it's the ones that the sides wrap from the back to the front to produce a pleat, but it is the entire length of the pant. And so I thought that would be a fun thing to try, because I noticed a couple design elements that we need to take into account that might present a challenge that would be a fun thing to address. So to begin, I'm going to be starting with my drafting paper. This is actually medical chair paper. I got it on eBay, but I think you can get it on Amazon as well. And this big roll of paper, I got two, and so it was like $12 and some cents for the 2 rolls, and that included the shipping. So it's about $6 something a roll. If you get a couple rolls, you get a little bit of a discount. But I like it because it's wide enough for drafting large pieces. And then, of course, it's a roll, so you can unroll as much as you want. So I'm going to go ahead and, let's see here, roll this out and cut off a piece. Now, I'm not turning on the light table because this tracing paper is very thin, so I can see through it. But if you like the look of my light table, I do have the dimensions of this table on the website, so you can go over there, and I think it's on the miscellaneous item page, and then you can get the dimensions if you want to build one. There's the framework, the glass on the top. This piece of glass actually came from a really, really old television set that my grandfather had. He made this for me. And then underneath is a bar that holds a small fluorescent shop light. So that's what this is made out of. So my basic tools when I'm drafting, of course, is my trusty mechanical pencil. This has a 0.5 lead, which I like because it's extra fine. And then, of course, I like a mechanical pencil because I don't have to worry about sharpening it all the time. I like the, are they the Faber-Castell white erasers? To me, they just erase very cleanly, and I like them the best. They don't leave smudges on my paper like the pink ones. And even some of the little rubber erasers that are colored will still leave color smears. So I like this kind. I also have it in a little pencil style that you can click. I always want to have a measuring tape. This one my daughter got for me, and I've used it tons, as you can tell, because I need to clean it. But I like to have inches and centimeters on my measuring tape. I actually have the doll. I don't know how far he has to come to be on camera, but I have him in case I need to double check a measurement or two. I shouldn't need to do a lot with that because I have the basic set. I do have a couple straight edges here. I do like using drafting triangles just in case I have something that's a specific angle that I want to use. Now, when I was in technical drawing classes, we were taught that you can create any measurement of an angle if you have a 30, 30, 60, 90 and a 45, 45, 90. I don't remember if that's true because I don't remember how we did it. But I know we did have to construct lots of different angles. And the only tools we had were these and a T-square. So, I don't know. But I like that just in case I have a corner that I want to make sure is nice and square. These are a really good tool. I have done, in the angle you can tell, I've used the straight edge on these a couple times, but I like to avoid using a marker on these just because it gives buildup. And then the more you clean it, the more it wear and tears on your plastic. So I'll get a cheap little ruler and use that for my straight edge for my markers, because when it gets worn out, I mean, they were like 10 cents. I can throw it away and get another one. And this one's kind of starting to lose lines in some places because I've used it so much. So my straight edge tools, my tracing paper, and then of course my basic set. And I like this because it's long enough to where I can do the pant legs, and then if I need to piece them out on the 8.5 by 11 paper, I'll do that when I transfer the pieces. So these pieces, we're going to start out with the pants. And now for this pair of pants, I am not going to have a traditional waistline, but we're going to do a facing instead, just because I want that clean look. But I do want to do an inset pocket, and I thought that will be the challenging part of these pants. So just for grins, that's what we're going to do. So the only pieces that we need to draft this pattern are going to be the pants front, the pants back, and then the pocket, at least for the pants. And I've kind of thought about how I want these pants to work, and I think I have it in my head what we're going to do. So I'm going to start with the back of the pants, just because the back is going to be pretty close to what it originally is. I'm not going to do a lot of changing except to make it wider. Now, I want the pant leg to be a little bit wider, but I still want it to fit nice at the top without like lots of gathers and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and do my waistband where it is. And there's already a seam allowance figured on these pieces. And then I'm going to do the crotch line as it is. So I'm just going to trace around the crotch line here. And right now I'm only worried about the actual cutting line, because this isn't going to change a great deal. So here's where the side seam from the back comes forward. But I do want this leg to be wider. So from the crotch position, it's going to come down a little bit, maybe 3/4 of an inch. And now I'm going to start coming about 1/4 inch out from my current hem, and I do want to lengthen them a little bit, just to give a little extra length. So I'm coming out from the edge, from the side of the inseam, and down, oh, maybe 1/8 of an inch from the bottom of my hemline, and I'm just making a mark there. On the outside, however, I want to come out quite a bit more, so I'm going to come out like a good 1/2 inch, and then down that 1/8 of an inch, and make my mark there. And I'm going to go ahead and keep this dart where it is. So I'm going to put my dart markings here. All right, now we'll move that to the side. And they always want to slip down because I don't have a very good lip on the edge of my light table. Okay, so now we're going to connect those lines with my straight edge. There we go. And now the inseam, like so. And then I'll do the hemline. And I'm just going to make the hem straight at this point. I'm not going to add a lot of curve on the hem. And then the dart in the back. There we go. And here we go. Now, I know that I want to have this wrap around the front on the side, but I still want there to be a pocket. And so the way I'm going to accomplish this is my little pocket pattern. And I'll probably keep the pocket line just like it is, because it's already planned. It already has the seam allowance and everything. So the little pocket piece won't have a lot of change. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the front. And so on the front, I'm going to place them, because there's already a little bit of a seam allowance here. So I'm going to place them so my cut line is pretty much in the same spot regarding the crotch seam, because they would meet. And I'm going to go ahead and add the fly into this pattern. Then when you sew it, you can either disregard it, put in an actual fly, or just sew the seam, you know, for a faux fly, however you would like to do that. So now I know that I want to come in about 1/4 inch, because we're making these pants wider, and down about 1/8 of an inch from the inside. Then I'm going to come across the top here. Now this is where the challenge is going to come. I'm going to add all the extra to overlap to the front of the pant. And the reason being, let's see, I've kind of got that drawn on, so that's a good position. Let's grab just a piece of scratch paper here. And I've got one that I use for marking. That's pretty much a scratch paper, so we'll just take this because I don't care if it gets messed up. So if this is the front of our pant, and we know that we want to have the fabric fold over on the front. So let's say this is the front edge of our pant with the crotch here. I want the front fabric to all be one piece, and that's what's going to come in and fold. And the reason being is, say we come in and we want to fold this much and then shape it down to the leg of the pant there, but we want it to come in that much. I want to still be able to put in a pocket, so I need the edge of the fabric that sews to the back side seam to be where I'm going to connect to put in those pockets. So if I cut my seam here and I have the back fold over, my pocket, where's my little pocket piece, here we are, is going to end up on the back, and it's going to be inside that fold, and so you wouldn't be able to access it because the pocket would be seamed inside there. So we want the pocket attachment to still be on the outside edge of the front piece in order for the pocket to be accessed. So what we're going to do is we're going to have that fold come, but then on the side of the pants where the back and this front meet is where our pocket will come into play, so that we can have that pocket, but we still have the overlap for that look on the front. And then my overlap, I know, needs to be at least enough to camouflage the pocket inside. So that's why we're going to add all the excess fabric to the front piece, so that we can fold it forward, have that really cool pleated look, and attach the button on it, but we still will be able to put that pocket inside. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's how we're going to draft this. So we'll put our pattern piece back in place here, our basic set from which we're measuring. So normally this would be the edge of my fabric, but I know that I want to fold it, let's see here, so that it at least will have enough room for that pocket. So if my pocket came into play here, I want it to be a little wider because I don't want it to be like a bodysuit. So it would be more like this. Let's see here. So I know I want it to come out to about here. There we go. So I'm going to make my mark here and my lengthening here. And now I'm going to move the side of my pant over to my new mark. And I don't want it to be that much wider at the bottom, so I'm going to angle down just a little bit because I've added to this as well. So I don't want it to be a total stovepipe. Okay. So then I'm going to come down this side. Keep a little bit of that curve. And then on the bottom. And now what I double check after I have this in place is I know that my pants have to join the back to the front at the inseams. So what I want to do is I want to grab my little measuring tape. There it is. And I want to make sure the inside, the inseam measurement is the same. And you can do it with inches. So we come down, we've got 8.5. And on this one, that's a little longer than 8.5. Okay, so I went a little bit long on that. So we're going to shorten that a little bit. There we go. Then I'm going to measure the outer seam because the outer seam also has to match when I sew them together. So we're going to measure this. There we go. And I've got the outer seam. My paper's kind of jiggly. Is 10 3/4. If I make it an even measurement to about there, just a little bit. Okay, so 10 3/4. So then we want this to be 10 3/4 as well. So 10 3/4 at the bottom here. Go along the line. Oh, it slipped. There we go. Following my line. Perfect. So right here. Okay, and now I'm going to connect. And this is a little wonky just because we moved it a bunch. So I'm going to connect those pieces. Now I'm going to add the cut line for the pocket, which would be here. And then we don't need this or this. So this now is the front of our pants that once we have it sewed, a portion probably about right here is going to fold and come forward towards the front. So now where's my front piece again? Oh, here it is. Okay, so here's our front. And what would normally be our edge, we want the pleat to come, let's see, probably to around here. Yeah. So I want this to be where it's folded to. There we go. And then I want the total to be, so that is right at the dotted line. And right here. So right about, yeah, where that pocket comes. So once that pocket is in place, then that is going to fold that direction. So let's go ahead and draw it out with our marker so we can see it a little bit better. Now that we have these pieces finished, I'm going to set that to the side. The next thing to do is to add our facing, because I'm not going to do a waistband on this, because I think the waistband would have too many layers of fabric and would make that fold really messy when you try to fold it over with that many layers of fabric. So we're just going to inset a facing into these pants. Now, one thing you can do is, I always take care of the excess of my fly when I'm actually putting the pants together. So now when these pants are finished, then this is going to come forward like almost at the edge of the pocket. I guess that should come in a little bit more. Now let's see. Because I do have my seam allowance, so we're going to X this out and move this over just a little bit. X this one out, which will put the fold about here. Okay, so some of these things you find out as you're doing it. So now, once this is folded, then this is going to fold over like this, and then hang like that. So what I do is I think, okay, is that what I want it to look like when they're finished? And I do like it, but I think my pant is still going to be a little bit too full. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it over the top of my back, because I know I want those seam allowances to the seam to still match, but I'm going to angle it in a little bit more because I don't want the bottom of the pant to be quite that wide. So now I'm going to grab my straight edge, and hopefully those won't move too much. And I'm going to make that little bit of an adjustment because I think that front, excuse me, is going to be too wide. So here we go. We're going to take a little bit of that and keep the length the same, but we'll get rid of that. So this is going to be my front piece, so we'll get rid of that little bit from the inseam. And then when this folds around, it'll come around and fold, and you'll put the button on. Then this is what the pants are going to look like. And I still have enough on the edge to go ahead and add that pocket. So the pocket will be sewn with right sides together, then flip it in, do the top stitching, trim the edge and all that. But then once it's inside, like so, the pocket is sewn on the inside of that. Then with the where that very edge of that pocket fabric is, that's the part that's going to come and pull forward. There we go. So that now we can have the pocket inside those pants, and it's not going to interfere with the fold, but it's going to help. Just that little bit of folded fabric in there is going to help give a nice line for that pleat to stay in place and encourage it to stay in place all the way down. Now that the front and the back and the pocket are done, now we just have to do the facing for the waistline. So we're going to start with the front, and all we're going to do is trace the top edge of the front of the pants. So I'm just taking the edge of my paper to, as the depth that I want the facing to go. And I'm going to go almost to the bottom of the fly, and I'm going to trace the top edge of the pants as if I had not cut out the pocket. So I'm going to do the side edge here. There we go. And just keep it to the top there, because the edge of the pocket will create what was missing from that cutout. And here we go. And I am going to trace to the very edge, the very end of the fly for both the facing pieces. And then when I actually put it into the pant, one of the fly pieces is folded all the way back and then one is extended. So I will go ahead and take care of making the adjustments to that when I put the pants together. So for now, I'm just going to go across the top edge, and then I'm going to write front, and I'm going to write top here. Oh, and Salem is walking all over stuff. What are you doing walking on my pieces? Crazy boy. There we go. So that's what I do for the front, and then I just cut that out. And then I'll need two of them, just like I need two of the front. For the back, however, what I'm going to do is the back, because it doesn't go as far down the leg as the actual pants do, the facing doesn't have to fit and curve around the bum because it's shorter. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this underneath. So it's about the same height as the other. I'm going to trace, oh, and then I want to write front and side on that piece. And now on this piece, I'm going to write, this is going to be the back edge, the center back. And I'm going to come across the top, and I'm going to go to where that first line of the dart is. Then I'm going to move the pattern underneath as if I were closing the dart. And I'm going to add a little bit of a flare, because that dart is going to shorten the top edge of the back. So there we go. So you can make it the full length and put a dart in this piece as well, or you can simply flare it out a little bit at the bottom and then adjust that top edge so that you don't have to put the dart in this piece. Because this isn't a wide piece that has to be shortened up because you wanted it wider because it's down here around the bum, because this is just dealing with the top part of the waist. And so that's kind of how I'm going to do this one. If you like, you can always just make it the full length and add the dart lines in. That's another way you can do it, but it's less work for me if I do it this way. So here are my facings that will go on the pants. So I have the side here, and then this is the back, and this is the center back. Then we have the side, and this is the center front, and this is the front facing. Okay, so then go, the center back and the side. And there's my two facing pieces. So there's all the pieces we need to make that pair of pants that will fold around on the front and create those pants. So that's the pants. Now on to the shirt. Now to do the shirt, I want to make a turtleneck that is a little bit more fitted than a t-shirt style, because I think I have one that's kind of like a t-shirt cut for the mat on the website already, but I want this one to be a little bit more fitted than that. So I need the pieces that are the actual back and side back combined and the front and side front combined. So those are the pieces I'm going to use because I don't need to have that seam for fitting for the turtleneck. Also, a note on the collars, you'll see there's two different styles. One says center front and then one says center back in the middle. So those indicate where the collar is going to be placed for the opening. So this one that says center back would mean that's in the back, and the collar's closure would be on the front of the doll. So that's not the one that I want. This is the one that I would use and adapt if I was going to do like a button-up shirt, but we're not going to use that one. So we're going to use the one that has center front, and then the closure is in the back. So that's what we're going to use. So now to design this turtleneck, I've got my sleeve, my back, and my front. I'm going to first fold my paper because the front I want to be all one piece. So I'm going to take the front piece, here it is, and when I line it up, I want the seam line to be on the fold. There we go, right about here. Okay, and I'm going to actually go ahead and put it underneath so I can draw where I'm going to change things. Okay, so now remembering that these pieces are directly drafted from the doll, I wrap the doll in saran wrap and I place tape over the top of it. I draw on my dividing lines and I cut it off the doll and I transfer that to paper. So if I sew this, I'm just going to get a super tight bodysuit for my doll. So I want it to be more roomy than these pieces, but this gives me something that I know would actually fit the doll. So for my turtleneck, I don't want it to be super, super tight around the neck. So I'm going to give that opening more room by lowering the neckline just a little bit from my pattern. I'm going to give more room at the front and just a little bit more room at the shoulder. So that's going to open up that neckline a little bit so that my collar, it doesn't just, wrap snug to the doll and not have any room. Then I'm going to take my shoulder, and I don't want it to just be tight to the shoulder, so I am going to lift that just a little bit, and I'm going to extend it out over what would be the shoulder. So I'm going to come out, because if this is like the edge of the doll, the shoulder is going to come out a bit. So I'm going to come out to approximately where the shoulder would be. And this time, because I'm changing the form of these, I am going by the actual sewing lines rather than the cutting lines. So I can add my seam allowance after I get it done. So now also I want the arm hole to, it's going to start farther out because I'm taking my shoulder out, but also I don't want it right up underneath his armpit, so I'm going to lower that. So here we're going to come down and we're going to lower that. So I'm giving more room in that arm opening. So now if you imagine, I'm going to leave this here because I don't want to lose my place. When you want to make this, how do I explain this? It's an interesting thing with armholes. If you want the armhole to be bigger, you have to go deeper into your pattern because that takes more of the pattern away, which in turn opens up the hole. If you go out, think, okay, I want it to be bigger. If you go out from the arm this direction, you're actually making the hole smaller when you sew it because you'll have less of an opening. So to open up the armhole, you cut into the pattern. And here, because I brought the shoulder out, I'm going to also bring out the side so that it's not so tight. So I'm going to give a good, from the actual, what would be the seam line to actually fit the doll, I'm going to give about a 3/8 inch extra. And here I'm going to curve it slightly in because, like I said, I want it to be a little bit more fitted than just a box. And I've given myself like another inch. of length here, because I want to be able to either tuck it in or wear it out. But if I wear it out, I don't want it to go down too far. So I am going to curve that in a little bit and then kind of back out. And I'm going to add an inch from the cut line there down to the bottom. So that's going to be my front. Now, to make sure it's the same on both sides, let's see, I might go ahead and turn on the light table at this point. Oh, I don't have it plugged in. I guess I won't. Well, the other easy way is to just cut on your line because it's folded. So we'll cut here. There we go. Oh no! Oh, Missy. Missy, Missy, Missy. Okay, I did a big mistake. I didn't add my seam allowance. How come no one reminded me? Well, you know what? Here, we'll just cut it out and then we'll add it on the next piece. Since I already made the mistake, here we go. Just have to trace it again. There. Okay. This is what happens when I get to talking. I'm talking too much and thinking too little. Okay. There we go. But now we have our piece. So, okay. So now I'm going to add my center line is where the fold is. There we go. We'll line up the bottom. Okay, and now I'm going to go a 1/4 inch from the piece. I'll leave it to me to not put the seam allowance on before I cut. Oh well. Okay. Okay. And now that I have the center, oh, my lead, there we go. Okay. I think I'll go ahead and just make sure that matches again by just cutting on the line. So now I'll fold it on the line. Where is my line? Oh, there it is. Okay, fold it here. My hand is not working very well, people. There. Okay. Okay. So this time I have my seam allowance. And whenever I make a mistake like this, and I have to fix and redo it, just to make sure, I take the first one that was the error and I crinkle it up so I don't use it by mistake. So, there we go. It looks like I have a little bit of a curve here. There. Okay. So there's my front piece. Like so. Okay. Now what I can do is I'm going to take the back. Here we go. I'm going to put it on here. Once again, I'm going to line up the, maybe I'll do it this way, the center here. We'll use this piece. Okay, so I have my back piece, and I'm going to line up, and the front, let's see here. The neckline is about 1/8 of an inch lower. So on here, I'm going to take what would be the seam line about 1/8 of an inch lower, or the cut line 1/8 of an inch lower, and line it up on the seam line, the center line. Okay, hope that all makes sense. Because the front of the neck is lower than the back of the neck. There we go. So I've lined it up on the center. So the center front and the center back are the same. And I've placed it on here so that my cut line is about 1/8 of an inch lower than the cut line on this, because the front is lower. Now what I can do is I can match my shoulders here and my neckline here, and then I can match the armhole, and in the back I might actually come a little bit more straight down. And then my side seam, because you want those side seams to match, and then the hem. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do now is, because this is going to have a back closure, I'm going to add not just a seam allowance, but a 1/4 inch extra from the seam allowance, so that I have overlap in order to create a closure in the back. So I'm going to go an extra 1/4 inch out from the seam allowance. So that gives me enough for a seam allowance and enough to overlap so that I can put my snaps on. So then I take this away, and then that one little tip, I'm going to fill in that. So let's go ahead and marker that so it's easier to see, since I'm not cutting it right away. There we go. Oh, and it's kind of messy because I have this glove on my hand, and my hand is very tired. Okay, so here's my back piece. Now, I do want to maintain, well, I guess it doesn't matter. Okay, so now we have a couple things that we need to draft that has to do with the openings on our shirt and our neckline rather, and the sleeve. So this is how I do it. So I'm going to add in the seam lines on the front, because I'm going to be measuring actual seam lines here, not just the cut line. So I'm just going to add those in so that I have something to measure. And then the same on the back piece. I'm going to add the seam line here. And I've got too much paper. There. Okay, much better. Okay, now my shoulder seam line. And I don't know if the glare is going to prevent those from showing, but, and then, here we go. Okay, so the next part is to do the sleeve. So when I draft a sleeve, this is where you're going to want your little measuring tape that's flexible. And I like to use centimeters because it's a base 10 system. So it's easier to convert than if I try to use inches. That just kind of gets messy for me. So I'm going to measure the actual seam line of the back sleeve opening. So I'm going to start right there, and I'm going to let my little ribbon curve along that seam line, and it is 5 centimeters. So I'm going to put a 5 here because I know I won't remember. So that's 5. Now I'm going to look at my seam line on the front piece. Okay, I'm going to start with 0 there. I'm going to curve my ribbon around and measure that, and I'm at 4.2. Yeah, 4.2. And I always try to have the shoulder line of my sleeve that attaches to the garment a little bit longer than the opening. So since this is 4.2 and that's 5, I'm going to call it 10. And because that way it'll be a little bit bigger. Because I always want my sleeve at least to be a little bit bigger than the opening, rather than the sleeve to be too small to fill the opening. So I'm going to want a sleeve top that is 10 centimeters across the top of the arch. So once again, I'm going to cut a piece of paper here, give myself plenty of room. There, okay. And when doing sleeves, again, it's easiest if you just fold the paper, because then you only have to do one side and you can cut it to get both sides the same. So now I'm going to line this up, and first I'm going to measure and see what this is on the actual doll, so I know how much I need to add, because if I know I want it to be 10, I know it has to be at least 5. So I'm going to measure here, and this seam line is, let's see, 3.8. So yeah, I've got quite a bit to go to get to 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up. Let's go ahead and put it here so we can see through it. There we go. And again, I'm dealing with the seam line. So I'm going to start with 5. Hold still there. Here we go. I'm going to put my 5 right on the line. I'm going to curve down. I'm going to curve out. And I'm going to mark where the 0 is, which would be here. So my seam line now is going to come down, and I want it to come to this line, because I opened up those openings on the sweater, so my sleeve needs to be big enough to fit. So this is now my seam line, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make this wider at the bottom. So I'm going to add at least a little bit more than the seam allowance from my seam allowance. So I'm going to come to here, so that I'm going to add more fullness to the bottom of the sleeve, and then all I have to do is connect those. So now that I have that connected, now I can add my seam allowance, since I'm not forgetting this time. Okay, and now there's a couple options you can do, which I am going to do on this one, and that's to add a cuff to the end of the sleeve. Now, right now the sleeve is good to go with the length. It's the same length as I drafted for the doll, but I'm going to add a cuff, so I'm actually going to shorten this just about 1/8 of an inch, not a lot, because I don't want it to be just barely long enough, but I do want it to have a little bit of a buckle with that sleeve, with the cuff on it, so that there's a little bit of extra length there. So I'm going to shorten it just a tiny, tiny bit, but not a lot. So here's my cutting line. Ooh. There we go. And I shortened it just a smidge, but not a lot, because I do want there to be a little bit of extra fullness in the length as well as the width of the sleeve. So now, once again, you can just trim on that actual cutting line with the paper folded, and you don't have to draw both sides that way. You only draw one side. So it saves you some time. And you don't have to worry about whether you drafted it the same on both sides or not. So here's our sleeve for our turtleneck. Now, to make the cuff, I know I'm going to be using a ribbed fabric that will have stretch to it. And I want it to be shorter than this length so that I can stretch it and it'll squeeze back. So I'm going to make my cuff the original length of the original sleeve, and then it will provide that little bit of pull. So on my cuff, I'm going to make a rectangle that is this long. And then we know we're going to fold it, and I want a seam allowance. So my cuff is going to be this. So that gives me a seam allowance on the sides, as well as a seam allowance to where it's going to connect to the shirt. There we go. So now this is going to be sewn with the stretch going this direction. There we go. So my stretch goes from side to side. So when I fold that, and then I start with the two raw edges at one side, and I anchor that, then I'm going to stretch this end to meet this end as I sew across, and then when I fold it like this, of course that's all going to be sewn on there, and then I'll have a cuff because you stretch this to match this edge. So that's the cuff for my sleeve. And now we just have to look at the actual turtleneck that's going to go on the shirt. Okay. I hope this isn't so boring. I know you guys want to see things sewn and see things put together, and oh well. Okay, so I don't need these anymore. I don't need this anymore. I'm only going to reference this, so I can put these back in my bag so I don't lose pieces. Okay, so now for the actual turtleneck. Now, I'm not going to use the curve of this as much as I am simply to get the height here. So if I have a turtleneck, I know I'm going to have a seam allowance, and it's going to have, this is going to be actually where it folds, and then it has to come back down. So what I want to do is I want to double this measurement, if I can get my ruler. So this is approximately 1 inch. So I know I want the height to be 2 inches. So I know part of it is going to be 2 inches. I'm going to write a 2 so I don't forget. Okay, so now once again, we need to measure what our neckline is. So on the front, we're going to use our centimeters so it's a little bit more accurate. I've got a glare from my overhead light there. Okay, so we've got halfway is 2.7, So we've got 2.7 twice. And then on the back, the neckline is, let's see here, 3.4. 3.4, so we got two of those because we have two back pieces, 3.4 and 3.4. So we've got 14, 18, 22, and then we've got 2, 4, 6, and that is 12. So we've got 12.2 for the entire length. Now, because I don't want a lot of stretch to this, but I want a little bit, so I'm going to just take that to 12. So we've got 12, but then we need the 1/4 inch on each end for seam allowances. So we've got 12.5, and then we need the 1/4 inch by 2.5. So at some point my camera turned off, and I won't know until I run all the footage back through the computer to find out where that was. So I apologize if some of this got cut off. But basically I have my front and my back pieces, my sleeve, the cuff for my sleeve, and then I measured the neckline, so I measured the back twice, and around the front I measured half and then doubled it to get a rectangle that I'm going to go ahead and it will be folded. It will also be cut so that the stretch goes that direction. So I made it a little bit smaller than the neckline so I can have a little bit of stretch to it, because this is going to be stretchy and I want it to not be too big. Then I will go ahead and insert this. It'll be folded, so it'll be more like a mock turtleneck. If you want, it can be folded down to, it just wouldn't be quite the full height of his neck. Let's lay him in here. But it would, well, it'd be close, yeah. So there we go. So that's how the neckline will look if it's folded on this doll. So I guess I did do better than I thought I did. So this is the turtleneck collar, and I have included the seam allowance already in there. So we have the back, where we added extra for the closure, the front, the turtleneck collar, the sleeve, the cuff for the sleeve. Then for the pants, we have the back and the front that will have the fold around pleat to the side with an inset pocket, a dart in the back, and then we have the facing for the front and the back. So there's the pieces that were drafted using the basic set. So I hope I didn't waffle on too much and that you get an idea how you can use these pieces to create a fashion look. So I will go ahead and get this transferred over to 8.5 by 11 paper, get all these ready, and we'll go ahead and post this on the website. So you'll have an outfit drafted from the basic pieces for a 44 centimeter MSD sized fella, and that's how you use it. So hopefully that's helpful for everyone. I can get this transferred and get it ready, and then I'll also edit the YouTube video so that hopefully that will be helpful and something that'll give you some inspiration, even though right now I can't sew. So once I had all the pattern pieces done, then I go ahead and I transpose them onto 8.5 by 11 paper and add any instructions and labeling for what type they are. So I get all that done, and then I am ready to go ahead and input this, scan it into my computer where I can add my logo and all that kind of stuff. And just a quick note, I did do the back facing of the pants with either the dart option or the undarted option. So both of the pieces are there with a little instruction. So yeah, so you can choose which option you would like to do. So anyway, that's how we draft a pattern from the basic pieces. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have fun drafting your own marvelous fashions. Bye!